Hello and welcome to Let's Talk F1 2014, the Canadian Grand Prix. And today we're going to be looking ahead at the Canadian Grand Prix race. I usually do these Let's Talks after the Friday practice and before FP3 and qualifying, but couldn't find time yesterday, so we're going to do it today after qualifying has happened. We'll get to the results of qualifying later at the very end of the video when I predict, who's gonna win and make the top three. And we're going to quickly run through some of the team's aerodynamic updates in this video, like we always do in Let's Talk. So let's get straight on to the constructors' leaders, Mercedes. So Mercedes, obviously, if you had looked at qualifying, look really strong yet again here at Canada. You know, the Mercedes engine can really be exploited here. But also, you know, during Friday practice, there are some really nice shots of the Mercedes cars. You can see on screen right now. This is of the side pods, and you can see just the little details at the bottom end of the picture near where the kind of side pod starts to curve in. You can just see those three little kind of or you call it wings coming out the car floor, and that's just the channel air through. So you can see, if you could imagine the car going in a straight line down the straight, air coming through the kind of big gap they've got in their nose, with the Mercedes nose being quite good with no little antenna nose or whatever you want to call it. You know, plenty of airflow going through there, going underneath the car, and then they'll have you know, a set of wings coming from underneath the chassis where the driver's feet are. You know, that whole area, they'll have winglets going up there that will channel air to these three little winglets coming out of the floor that direct it across the side pod. So, you know, we talk a lot about airflow going through the suspension arms and, you know, over the front wheels, around the front wheels and stuff like that, but also a lot of it is coming from underneath the car. That's why everyone talks about the underneath the car this year, about getting air under there, and why the antenna nose had to be done to get air underneath, because then all the air from underneath can either be channeled, you know, completely for underneath the car, or to the side pods where they have these like subtle little wings. Like, you wouldn't notice these winglets unless from this angle. I mean, if you looked at it from the front, you wouldn't be able to see these little winglets because they're tucked away behind the little barge boards. So these little winglets are really intricate into bringing air across the car, and Mercedes does that really well. If we look on this next picture now of the rear of the car, Mercedes, just a very tight packaging. You can see, you know, just all comes to a really nice Coke bottle shape, essentially, you know, when the back kind of narrows up, so resembling a Coke bottle, and it gets really smooth underneath as you've got the side pods from the top going downwards, kind of really swooping and tucking in, really creating a nice channel for air to kind of get trapped and go along to the rear tyres. Not a development for the front wing, but Mercedes, here is a picture of the front wing. They just had these huge sensors on the front wings, so they're looking a lot at the pressures and the temperatures going through the front wing, and also obviously they can point them towards the front tires as well, seeing the load on the tires, because obviously Canada, quite important that you get some really nice grip, and going into these, it's not really fast or slow. It's sort of like kind of halfway through. You can, you know, it's really important to be able to get the grip from the curbs as well. It's important to look at the tire as well, because they camber it in. Try and look at the tire temps, because tire tag is going to be important. As you know, if you can, you know, manage to do maybe even a one-stop, people are saying, then that's going to be a good way to go if you can do it and you can go fast enough. So very important there. But yeah, that's been Mercedes. Let's go on to Red Bull. So here's a picture of Red Bull's front wing, and as you can see on the left-hand side, the top element of the front wing, just that little kind of section coming out of the main sidewall of the front wing. They've actually just added like a new little part on the very end. They've just got that really harsh flick upwards, and just generally they've taken a bit off the top, actually, because obviously Red Bull, having a Renault engine, the Renault engine is not very good at all at top line speed. Red Bull, one of the slowest cars out there in straight lines, so they're trying to remove a bit of the drag on the straight, so they're taking a bit off. It just looks a whole lot, a bit less more complex than it usually is at places like Monaco, where we were last time, where it's all about downforce. So Red Bull just try to simplify stuff, trying to gain a bit back. Also, their nose has changed a tiny bit. They've just made it a bit more kind of sort of going towards the Ferrari and Mercedes style. They've still got the keel nose, but yeah, they've tried to extend the kind of amount the sides of the actual nose cone go. And looking at the side of the Red Bull front wing here, underneath the Total sign, you've got those three little gaps in the front wing. Those weren't there previously. Previously, there were some more kind of intricate but kind of channels that would just force air outwards around the tyre, but now it's a full gap going into the middle. So also they're trying to work a bit more air underneath the front wing going towards the what do you call it, suspension arms of the tyres. But yeah, just a little tiny change to it. I'm not too sure how much it will affect them, but definitely looking at qualifying, you know, they've been going well. Obviously, it's all a bit down to the driver as well. Sebastian Vettel did say that he was being a lot more aggressive in that qualifying session. And then here's a picture of the rear of the Red Bull. Very nice tight packaging, but actually I wanted to note that it actually sort of tiny bit looks like it's a bit less tightly packaged than Mercedes, maybe because Red Bull have to work a bit more on cooling with that Renault engine. But where the AT&T sign is, around there on the Mercedes car, it's a lot more, the side pod tucks in a lot more and kind of hunkers in to the car. So let's say if you're looking at from flat on, from front on, it kind of, you know, from the top, the side pod comes down, curves around, and really tucks in. And the Red Bull just looks like it doesn't tuck in as much by the AT&T sign. Probably because of cooling as well. And also here on the picture where the Total sign is on the front wing, they got that really large slot in the rear wing, and they've got bigger slots on the top of the rear wing just to try and create a bit less drag from the rear wing. Their rear wing is very efficient. We know this Red Bull are very good on rear downforce usually, but they're trying to reduce as much drag as they can here at Canada because they're really suffering on engine performance. But yeah, that's been Red Bull. Let's quickly look at Ferrari now. So Ferrari actually were looking quite good in practice. In qualifying they didn't go too well, but in practice they were looking quite good. But many theories saying that's just because the Ferrari team as a whole kind of just gets straight into it, gets stuck in, and that's why you might see Alonso fastest on many practice one sessions now, compared to Red Bull and Mercedes, who maybe take their time to kind of just get into things, get into the flow of it. Maybe because they can relax, and maybe Ferrari have to push a bit. But yeah, the car was working okay through practice. Qualifying wasn't too great for them. Both Kimi Raikkonen struggling quite a bit. You know, slower than the McLaren Jenson Button, which is a bit surprising. Actually, being a Button fan myself, I was surprised to see him actually that far up ahead of one of the Ferraris. Maybe Kimi's just struggling personally a bit. But looking at the rear, the Ferrari just looks quite interesting to look at, really. Just looking at the diffuser kind of development, and also you can see the winglets coming off the rear brake ducts. There on the right hand side of the picture, just looks a bit less complex than the Red Bull and the Mercedes. And you know, the Ferrari is about, you know, at least a second down from the Mercedes, maybe even more. So you know, it just shows a bit, you know, a bit less complexity. It really does add up into all of it, really. And also you can just see generally how the whole bodywork's housed around the exhaust outlet. It's just a lot more blocky and a bit less tightly packed, maybe again because of the Ferrari cooling. I don't know, maybe they're just not developing as much as, you know, maybe they want to in that rear area. But yeah, looking at another picture of the rear of the Ferrari does look quite tight from the side, but from the rear it is a bit more open than it is. But on the rear wing as well was quite interesting. They've got two little slots. They've had those for a while now, so it's similar to what Red Bull only put on now. So just showing you how Red Bull's philosophy goes about things. Red Bull are usually all about downforce, 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 and a bit less about trying to make a bit less drag on the rear wing, which Ferrari seem to be doing quite a lot, because, you know, Alonso likes to overtake in the races. That's where that's his strength, you know, coming back from a bad position. So he needs some good straight line speed on the straights to really gain in slipstream and whatnot. But yeah, that's been the Ferrari. I think next we'll look at the McLarens. So this is the most interesting thing about the McLaren car so far this weekend, is that they've taken out one of the top layers of the mushroom suspension. If you didn't know this is a mushroom suspension that they've basically made the rear suspension arms really blocky and curved, and that basically means any air that goes there gets trapped and gets forced down towards the diffuser, makes it work harder to get more rear downforce. They've taken out the top layer, so they've only got the bottom rear suspension arm as a mushroom shape and the normal one there on the top, and that's because they don't need that much downforce on the rear. Well, they need downforce, but they don't need as much at Canada, because they can gain a bit more time, they feel, by just being faster on the straights. And it kind of shows how much the mushroom suspension actually does create a bit more downforce and a lot more drag for them, because they're the slowest Mercedes car in the speed trap. So you know, if they took both of these layers off, who knows how fast they could actually be in a straight line. They might be on par with actually the rest of the Mercedes cars. And looking at the picture of the rear wing now, just a bit shallower. Usual stuff for Canada to expect. You know, the rear wing gets shallower for most teams. Here's a picture of the side pods, and just interesting to compare it to the Mercedes car. Not as complex. You can see it straight away. It's just got one little barge board and no intricate winglets kind of shaping the air around. So, you know, simple things that I'm picking up on, but obviously it's a lot different. It's a different story if you're thinking that, oh, you just picked on that, why can't the team pick up on that and, you know, do their own system? It's because everything has to work together, and, you know, the Mercedes car has obviously been designed for those three little wings to be there, but the McLaren car is just simply not, and it might not be the way to go for their side pods, and the side pods are shaped a bit differently, so they have to think about their own kind of how it's going to work with the rest of the car. And here's another quick picture of the mushroom suspension there, just showing that it's not on the top arm, to try and get a bit less drag at the rear. So now let's go on to Toro Rosso. So the only thing for Toro Rosso is just an interesting little shape on the rear wing. At the very top, you've got this kind of carbon strip there, trying to smooth out the top, I think. And also, they've just thinned down the rear wing a tiny bit. So, sort of the same thing that lots of teams are doing. And also, you can just about see where the Cespa sign is on the left. You can see a little slot gap, just like the Red Bull car. So trying to create a bit less drag. And the Toro Rosso is actually working quite well. The fastest Renault car in a straight line, and faster than the McLaren in a straight line, which is quite interesting to note. So that might help them in the race with DRS. We'll have to see. But now moving on to Lotus. So looking at the Lotus front wing here, we've got the side part of the front wing, and these flaps were actually these little winglets that come under the yacht phone little sponsorship there. Those are actually there at Monaco, but they've I think they've extended it a tiny bit, and it's kind of like a triangle shape as it goes from the bottom up and then comes back down. They've also got the top winglet. That's just to help airflow channel it around to the very edge of the front wing edge, and it kind of, you know, helps it kind of curve around the front tires, trying to get airflow through there. And then finally for Lotus, we've got a rear wing that looks very, very skinny indeed. So they've gone for a much skinnier rear wing than most, trying to create a lot less drag. That Lotus, probably the worst in the straight line, I think, apart from the Caterham on the Renault engine. Obviously, Lotus missing a test at the beginning. They've been very poor on how their engine development's gone. But that's been Lotus now, so I think we'll look at Force India. So Force India's got some really nice little touches on the rear wing. As you can see here, they've got a new paint job for the rear wing, but we can see the two little what's it called? What did I call them before? Little kind of slot gaps in the rear wing that we've seen on the Red Bull and Toro Rosso and such like that. Force India have had those before. I also mentioned in the China Let's Talk that they introduced these little fins on the very edges on the rear side of the rear wing, and they had about, I think, 3 or 4 at China. And as you can see here, clearly by the new paint job, you can really see it kind of really nicely highlights it. They've got, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 little slot gaps. Not slot gaps, little slits that kind of just channel air through. You can imagine the air going through, and then, you know, it wants to rise obviously, but it's getting, you know, trapped by the little slots and just flicking upwards. And that creates upwash, and that creates a net downforce on the rear car. The front wing also looks a tiny bit skinnier, but yeah, also just a nice look at how the exhaust comes out from the engine and goes through the little cover towards the monkey seat. Doesn't have the engine cover on there. So yeah, here's a picture of the Force India front wing. And it's very simplified. It's a lot less simpler than the Monaco one, and it's just a lot less simpler to kind of get rid of the drag, because the teams need to be as efficient as possible and kind of counteract how they approach things. So they have enough downforce in the corners, but also enough speed on the straight lines to really gain back any time lost in the corners. And this is another nice little detail, just a little winglet coming out the side. This will be where the driver sits, so just on the edge of where the driver sits, a little winglet coming out. Most teams have this now, so it looks like Force India has just caught on to doing this. You know, the rules are very strict on winglets, extra winglets, but you are allowed these little small ones that come out, and you know, Ferrari exploited to the point where these little winglets come out and extend down to the side pod. So some good stuff there from Force India. We'll look at Sauber next. So Sauber's front wing here is looking pretty okay. But a good thing to note that was noted, I think it was from BBC F1, if I remember, just looking at this and the Force India front wing and also some other front wings, just Sauber a lot less complex, especially the side. There's not a lot going on. Also underneath, they've only got 3 channels, whereas the likes of Red Bull and Mercedes have got about 5 or 6 little you know, curved little intricate layers of the front wing on the right hand side of the picture instead of Sauber's 3 there. So just a lot less intricate. Might give you a little idea on where they're losing downforce. But also at the rear, they've got an interesting thing. They've just kind of curved the rear wing on the sides, on the left and right, just curving a bit more down and elevating the middle part. Just, again, trying to reduce drag where possible, because the teams need a balance where they're going to try and gain some time. And so the final team will be Caterham. So one thing for Caterham is just the front wing. Looking at the front wing, very simple compared to other teams. Not a lot of stuff going on. They've only got one extra layer on the right-hand side. So this is, just key stuff that they're not getting. Whether it's funding, whether it's, they're trying to do something different. I'm not too sure, but, they're missing things like that on their car that really could make a big difference, because the more layers you have, just a lot more air being channeled in different kind of little tiny directions that can get around. But yeah, the Caterham wing looking pretty plain, and I guess it's kind of the budget of the small teams. They can't really afford to bring too many different front wing designs, whereas you've got the likes of like Red Bull able to ship out a front wing on demand if they really needed it to. But yeah, no developments from Rosso and Williams that were really stated in any... Whoops, sorry, that's my mic being a bit retarded. Yeah, no really upgrades being stated from Rosso or Williams in the coverage this weekend, so a bit surprising there. But we'll get on to my predictions, also looking quickly at the qualifying results now to finish off the video. So we look quickly at the qualifying results. On the right hand side, we've got Rosberg in first place, Hamilton second, Vettel third, and surprisingly Bottas and Massa in fourth and fifth. But Vettel saying he really had to push hard to get that third place. Good job done for him. Rosberg also managed to get ahead of Hamilton, which is crucial psychologically. Pole position is not crucial here at Canada, but it is just psychologically good for Rosberg to get ahead of him, to try and psych Hamilton out a tiny bit. Ricciardo did an okay job. I thought he might have beaten Vettel, but Vettel really pushed hard. Very impressed by him in the qualifying to really grab that time out of the air. But I think he'll be looking good. And as I said here, Button beating Raikkonen to 9th place, which is surprising. Raikkonen locking up a tiny bit. Not really feeling the car this weekend yet again. I think he's really having issues with the brake-by-wire system as an electronic brake, and I don't think he's getting the kind of feel for it. Especially here at Canada, brakes are crucial. Braking zones are crucial. That's where I think Kimi is losing all the time. Fernando in 7th place. He was looking pretty good in practice. Free practice 3 as well in the qualifying runs, but it just didn't work out for him as the Mercedes engine cars ramped up the pace as they were able to find a different setting to get even more speed on the straights. But somehow Red Bull got in there, 3rd place. Very good stuff for a Renault powered team to get up to 3rd place there with Sebastian Vettel. But yeah, my predictions for the Grand Prix are going to be 1st place Lewis Hamilton. I would say Nico Rosberg. And I would like it. I would like it to be Nico Rosberg, because I think at some point Hamilton will go on another streak of wins. So I think the more wins Rosberg can get right now, I think for the better, because I think at some point Lewis will go on another hot streak of 4 wins or something like that. But I think Hamilton will win this one out at Canada. Plenty of overtaking to be done during the race. They'll have battles for sure, race long. But I just see Hamilton winning out in the end. I think this is a circuit he really likes. So I'll put him first. Rosberg in 2nd place, and I put Sebastian Vettel in 3rd place. Solidifying that 3rd place he gets in qualifying. I think Ricciardo will go up to 4th place. Bottas will be in 5th. Felipe Massa in 6th place. I think Fernando Alonso will come in 7th, and then Kimi Raikkonen maybe in 8th, or maybe even Jenson Button in 9th place. And then 10th place is a bit up for grabs. Maybe Nico Hulkenberg gets up there. Or Felipe Massa. I actually forgot about him. But I just think both the Williams won't make it in. I think there's just something about that team. They just have a bit of bad luck sometimes. But yeah, that's going to be predictions for the Canadian Grand Prix. Do remember, post your predictions down in the comments. I always like to read them. I may not reply to any of them, but I do like to read them. It's all very interesting to see what the general perspective is about each Grand Prix. So do comment below your top 3, your top 10, even, some people going to, all 22, which is a bit mad, but yeah, there you go. And also, tell me if you have any more kind of surprises, Last race we saw Marussia getting points. Are we going to see another wacky result like that? Or are we going to see, I don't know, maybe one of the Mercs go out? I don't know. Random prediction from you guys would be nice. But yeah, your top 10 would be amazing to read. So do comment that below. If you did enjoy this, give it a like. If you're new around here, do subscribe for more of these analytical talks. It is quite a long video to listen to. But, if you're a hardcore F1 fan, I hope you find it enjoyable. Yeah, so if you did enjoy it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new for weekly F1. I've been aarava. I'm right in the middle of my exams, guys, so probably the next F1 video will be GP in 60 seconds tomorrow after the Grand Prix, but then after that will probably have to be the next weekend with the Monaco Grand Prix 100%, because right now, as I speak, I'm in the middle of my exams, so I hope you guys understand that. But I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you guys next time. Hope you enjoy the Grand Prix tomorrow.